Hello. Look who we have here today. Jane Alden and Natty Burns. Welcome.
Thank you. Love to be here.
Glad to have you. So we are doing a question and answer session today and some short readings so that we can introduce you to Jane and Natty, and we're glad to have you here. For those who are watching, feel free to post comments, and if you have any questions, you can put a Q before your questions so that we can get those answered for you. Jane Alden, she has had 4 books that have been published so far. Is that correct, Jane?
That's right. Yep.
And she's working on more, so we're happy to hear that. And Natty, you have 15 books. My God, you're my idol.
That's wonderful. 16 now, but hey, it's great.
Yes.
It's great.
Even better, 16, not 15. And working on more. I love it. I don't know how. We're going to have to talk about how you keep going on all of those different stories and where you pull them out of. That's just wonderful.
Absolutely.
And both of you are award-winning book writers. So that's just wonderful. Both of you do a great job. Obviously, readers feel that way because you're getting those awards. You have people reading your books. And, when I look at the different writing styles that both of you have, I think it's wonderful. You're just broadening your niches within the lesbian community. Although, Nat, we'll get to you because I know you write mainstream too, right?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we will get to that too. So what I'd like to do today is have both of you read from your work in progress or your book, whichever. And what you'll do is you'll just set it up for the readers, tell them what the book's about, and set up the scene you're going to read so that we know what's going on. And then we can discuss it a little bit afterwards. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Perfect.
Great. I'll start off.
Okay.
I'm going to read from A Work in Progress with Desert Palm Press. And the title is Evil's Echo. And this is a mystery story. It's a serial killer mystery story. It's set in New York City in 1970. And this is the opening chapter. A thick rope tied to a 1940s ceiling fan ended in a noose around the neck of the black-robed, lifeless figure. Judge John Hawthorne's face was livid. His eyes bulged in their sockets, and his black tongue lolled out of his mouth. A draft, blowing in open double-hung windows, billowed the black robe. The body rotated in a lazy circle, a gruesome pirouette. I whispered in Harry's ear, "Can't someone shut off the fan?" "It's off. The wind in his robe is making him turn. The coroner will show up soon to take him down." Harry Logan is a crime reporter at the New York Gazette where I work. "You better stand back a little. Detective Sloan is stretching a point letting us be here and take pictures. We need to stay out of his way." He motioned toward the corner with his pencil. "Stand over there, Butch." My newspaper stories carry the byline Eleanor Tracy, but the guys at the newspaper tagged me with my nickname, Butch, and the name stuck. They don't call me Butch because I'm a lesbian. I keep my private life pretty quiet around the office. They think they're being cute and ironic because of my size, 5'1" and 90 pounds. Harry says it's because I'm spunky. If he means what I think he means, I choose to take it as a compliment. I started at the Gazette in 1967, about 4 years ago, as a copy boy. My job was running stories from the reporters on the various beats, like police, city hall, and so on, to the editors in time for the next edition. I've always dreamed of being a crime reporter. Lots of reporters start as copy boys. I worked twice as hard as anyone else, and I got my shot, but not on the crime beat. I'm a society reporter. Duke Reynolds, my city editor, doesn't think a woman belongs out at all hours chasing robbers and murderers. I cover fancy weddings, debutante balls, and charity events. I also fill in for the Lonely Hearts columnist, Dear Aunt Betty, when he's gone on a bender and disappears for a few days. I figure these assignments are a start. Harry knows about my ambitions. He covers the crime beat and he calls me when something interesting comes over his police band radio. That's how I got here in Judge Hawthorne's chambers. A wooden straight chair lay tipped over under the body, and the forensics tech was dusting it for prints. The corpse made another slow turn. His hands were tied behind his back. This was no suicide. The judge's killer put the noose around his neck, made him stand on the chair, and pushed him off. In the corner, NYPD Detective Mike Sloan and a female cop talked quietly with a woman crying into a handkerchief. The witness hiccuped back a sob. I came in early. I always come in early before anyone else to get a start on organizing the day's calendar. Judge Hawthorne insists on everything being organized. She looked up at the body. And there he was, just hanging there. That sent her off on another crying jag. Detective Sloan is a fixture in murder investigations in this precinct, but I had never seen the female before. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her perfectly bland gray suit and crisp white cotton blouse almost, but not quite, hid a killer figure. David McAdams, the newspaper's staff photographer, aimed his camera and followed the body's slow twirl. David and his boyfriend Jean are my best friends and my landlords. My apartment is on the third floor of their brownstone. I tugged David's sleeve. Get a close-up shot of the note on the front of the judge's robe. Yep. A flash bulb popped and lit up the paper thumbtacked to the judge's chest. Thumbtacked? That was cold-blooded. Printed in red block letters, the note said, "The sins of the father are to be laid upon the children." At the bottom was a symbol, a circle with a cross in the middle, like looking through a rifle scope. Detective Sloan pantomimed an instruction to the woman cop to get some water for the witness. I followed the woman cop out the door down the wide marble hallway of the courthouse, empty at the early hour. She stopped at a water fountain with a paper cup dispenser. I waited till she filled the cup and cleared my throat. "Hi, I'm Butch Tracy from the Gazette." She leaned toward me. "Did you say Butch?" "It's a nickname." "Oh," she nodded and smiled, this fantastic smile that lit up her whole face. I stuck out my hand. "Obviously, it's a nickname, I guess." She shook hands with a firm grip, not like some women who do the limp finger shake. "Detective Christine Carr." "I haven't seen you around." "I recently transferred from Buffalo." "They really threw you into the deep end with this case." "Yeah, they've got me riding with Sloan for a few weeks to break in." "The woman you're questioning, did she find the judge?" A wisp of her hair had escaped her bun, and she set down the cup to tuck the curl behind her ear. "I'm new to NYPD, but not to police work. You and I know talking to the press is above my pay grade. I'd better get back." She picked up the cup of water. "Right, no problem. See you around, Detective Carr."
Yay!
Very good. I was doing my little clap down here, but I suppose I can do it up here, right? Well done. That sounds intriguing. What a setup. Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, when is it set? What year is it set around?
1971, 70, 71. Yeah, Christmas
Great
time.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
In New York City. Yep. You know, it's before cell phones and computers and DNA and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I like to write mysteries that have forensics that are from that time period. 'Cause I don't understand the other, I guess.
When they have to do the good old
They have,
fashioned
they
sleuthing.
have to find a phone booth. Hey, they have to.
That's
Excellent.
hilarious.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah.
So Natty, you want to take us on to your reading?
Sure. I'm reading from The Rustle of Leaves, which it came out a couple years ago with Desert Palm Press. Here's the cover. It's got a little angel on the front, which is important to the story. So mine might be a tad longer, but maybe not. Let me set this up. There's a sheriff, Lacey Terry, in this small town in Alabama called Queen's Lot. And she's been noticing that there have been a lot of murders of elderly people in their 70s, 80s, 90s. And she's starting to see a pattern that nobody else is quite seeing. And so she's getting a little suspicious. So this is kind of like when this starts, her suspicion starts. Lacey's police radio squawked to life Sunday morning, waking her from a comfortable sleep. She rolled and checked her cell phone. Yep, the ringer was off. Now, how did she do that? She grabbed for the radio only to have her fingers glance it and spin it off the nightstand and onto the floor. Hell and damnation, she swore as she rolled her legs off the side and sat unsteadily on the bed. Her long, dark chestnut hair fell forward and covered her eyes. She plucked the radio from the floor before sweeping the mane away from her face. Lacey here, what's going on? She said into the radio. We've been trying to get you for the past 20 minutes, boss. Is your phone broke? She could hear the humor in Sully's voice. That's her deputy, Sullivan, and smiled even though she was still technically asleep. Turned the damn ringer off accidentally. Sorry. Sure you wasn't entertaining? Sully chuckled. Not hardly. Open radio, Sully, she gently reprimanded him. What's going on? We got another death. Mrs. Maureen Arrington. She died at home. Oh, no. She took in a deep breath. She remembered Mrs. Arrington very well. She and her grandmother were gardening buddies. Who found her? The radio squawked loudly, then calmed as Sully's voice came through. Housekeeper, Jenny Rodriguez. She was coming over early to set up for a luncheon today. Found her laying on the sofa, dead as a doornail. Has Cleavon gotten there yet? Yep, just got here. Tell him to wait for me. I'll be out there as soon as I get dressed. He signed off and she rose slowly. Damn, another elderly person dying. Things were starting to get a little strange in Queen's Lot. Could this many deaths be normal? She hurried into the bathroom and jumped into the shower. After a few seconds, a chill ran up her spine, even under the heat of the pounding water. Had there been a strange noise? She ceased all movement, listening intently to see if she could pinpoint what had caused such a subconscious, visceral reaction. She debated turning off the water, but laughed at her irrational fear. She finished soaping up, then rinsed her face and turned to rinse her back. Suddenly, an unfamiliar noise filled and echoed in the small room. A creaking noise. Alarmed, she slammed water from her face and saw through squinted eyes that the half-open door to the bathroom was moving. Quickly, heart pounding with alarm, she swiped water from her eyes once again and peered around the curtain. The husky cry of her Siamese Ben relieved her and set her racing heart back to normal. Man, was she jumpy. Shit, Bennikin, you scared me half to death sneaking in here like that. Ben watched her with an inscrutable gaze. He curved his lean body against the porcelain of the toilet, never taking his bright blue eyes off her. You got nothing. Really? She shook her head in exasperation, then slapped the curtain shut and finished bathing. He watched her dress impatiently. Yes, I know. You want your morning meat. Can I at least finish getting myself together? Ben meowed loudly in response. He seemed to be getting irate. It was almost as if he knew Sunday mornings were supposed to mean long, leisurely breakfasts in the kitchen, in pajamas. Instead, his mom was preparing to go to work yet again, almost as if it weren't the weekend. Lacey sighed heavily as she clipped the radio to her belt. I know, Ben. I know. I'll be back as soon as I can, okay? Ben headed into the hall toward the kitchen. He looked back once to make sure she had gotten the message. Later, while he was wolfing down his breakfast, Lacey paused to brew some coffee and pour it into an insulated travel mug. It was going to be a long morning. Pulling up to Bloom Haven, the Arrington farm, Lacey took in the unusually calm police scene. The other Coves County Sheriff's Department vehicle, a white Ford SUV, parked next to the dark blue Forever Rest van. Another car, a small foreign-made sedan, rounded out the trio. Lacey assumed that it was the housekeeper's car and that Maureen's Chevrolet Impala was in the garage. She stepped from the cruiser and turned to the house. House? It was almost a mansion. Quincy Arrington had owned the Chevrolet dealership in town, and he had done very well for himself and his small family. Maureen had never worked, as far as Lacey knew, but she had brought in a good bit of award money for her biannual gardening contests. In her heyday, she had been quite the impressive community leader. Sully came out into the wide front veranda as Lacey approached the house. Hey, Sully, good way to start the morning, isn't it? There's worse ways, I guess, Sully replied. He turned and led the way into the huge entrance hall. We could be her. True, Lacey nodded in agreement. Hey there, Lacey. Good morning, Cleavon said. He was kneeling next to the body, but stood to greet her. Maureen's body was curled up on the sofa behind him. She looked peaceful. Natural causes? Lacey asked. Cleavon, a small, wiry man who, during off hours, had a rampant body sense of humor, grinned at her. I should think so, Lacey. I mean, she was 82 and had been battling cancer for a while. Lacey pulled at her bottom lip as she pondered this. Listen, Cleavon, we need to be real careful on this one. Call it a gut feeling if you want. But I need you to compare her death with some of the others that have been happening here in the lot. Cleavon watched her, puzzlement twisting his lean face. What? You think these are homicides? That's a stretch, Lacey. Who would want to target old people? Old people. They get sick. They die. She shrugged, bristling a little. She always had to push so flipping hard at this job. Maybe no one is. Let's just make sure we keep our eyes peeled about everything from here on out. Cleavon scowled and turned away. Whatever. He spoke to his young helper, who waited with the stretcher. Let's get her out of here, Bobby. Looks like we'll be spending a good part of the day with her.
Listen. Yay, that was awesome. We had you on the spotlight, Natty. It took a minute for you to see us clapping.
That's okay. That's all right. But thank you for that opportunity.
That was great. So you had said a little earlier off broadcast that you're writing a sequel to this.
Yes, I do. I'm plotting it out now. And several people have said you should do a prequel because it's a serial killer thing. And how did the serial killer come to be? So I'm playing with that idea too, but I have some plotting thoughts on a sequel, a continuation of this, because I kind of left it a little bit open in the end that I could play with.
Awesome. And yeah. Jane, is the one that you read from your work in progress, is that also about a serial killer?
Yes. So, this is the first of several.
This is so funny that we get both of you reading about serial killers.
I know.
And we look so normal.
We were saying writing a mystery or serial killer or whatever is fun because to me it's like a puzzle. It's like putting together a puzzle. And
exactly.
It's different from romance and historical, which my first two books were with Desert Palm Press.
Yeah, I remember.
Was a romance and a historical. It's a different kind of it's almost like you write it backwards because you get into the plot and you think, wait a minute, that's not going to make sense to the reader. I need to go back and signal something, that's going to make more sense. So they're a lot of fun to write, don't you think, Natty?
I do totally. I love making my characters have these clues. And, they have to use their mental faculties and they have to see patterns and put these things together and say, wait a minute, these are all old people dying, but they're all dying peacefully. Their arms are placed across their chest. Somebody's doing that,
Right.
So, so she has to put that together. Who would want to do that? And why?
So basically you're having to go back and weaving in some foreshadowing and maybe some red herrings and
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
That's
what we do.
Very fun.
It's fun. Like a jigsaw, like she said.
Right. So Natty, tell me, the book that you read from, what time period was that from?
That's modern. It's modern day, but
Okay.
it's set in a really small town in Alabama with only about 900 people. So,
All
you know,
right.
it has that kind of small town, and I'm not criticizing it all. I love it. This small town time pause. You know,
Mhm.
it's like time stood still in a small town. It doesn't
Mhm.
have the modern things of a big city, and the people all know one another and they know everybody's family and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So it's a little bit different, but it is modern times.
And I would think that would be interesting because it is a small town. It would really rock their community to have these murders occurring.
Completely, complete. And who is the stranger that has come in? Is it a stranger? We
Right.
don't know.
Right, right,
So
right.
there you go.
So I'll ask this to both of you. How do you get into the mind of a serial killer, and how do you know what they're doing and what their motivations are, and how do you
Yeah.
prepare to write something like that?
Go for it, Jane.
Well, thank goodness for the internet, and thank goodness for Netflix.
Hmm.
Because you can binge watch a lot of this kind of material. But um, every murder, they say, has a opportunity, motive, and method.
Hmm.
So did the killer have the opportunity to do the murder? Were they in the vicinity of the victim? um, Motive. Why would the suspect want to kill this person?
Hmm.
And method. How did they do it? So that
Right.
kind of forms the structure, I think, of how you think about a murder. The Evil's Echo, I'm going to give a little bit away here,
It's okay.
is revenge killings for the Salem witch trials.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's
Love it.
modern day revenge killings for what happened in 1620 in Salem, Massachusetts.
What a
So
cool
are you
angle.
doing it? Are you doing it from the perspective of the killer, Jane, or from
No,
the
it's first
detective?
person Butch. First
Okay, yeah,
person. Yeah, yeah. And
the
that's a
crime
lot of fun.
reporter.
Writing in first person is a lot of fun. To,
Yes.
yeah, it's
It's
rewarding.
challenging because people either like the first person or they hate it. And believe me,
Yeah,
my reviews have told me that. So
I love
yeah,
first person.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, me too.
Well, it sets limits because your narrator can only know what what she knows or what somebody
Right?
tells her. And
Hmm.
that also, I think, is a good structure too. I find it, to be good for the structure of the story so far
A lot of
on this one
police
anyway.
a lot of police procedurals are that way. They're first person. And the clues are provided by the offset characters. You know, they bring this information in. So I
Right.
think it works well for that.
So Natty, so she told
Hmm.
me how what her mindset when she's writing about these serial killer or this serial killer. So what do you do? How do you prepare to write?
You know, if anybody went and looked at my search on Google, my search stuff on my search engine, they would be alarmed. They'd
So
be
you're on
knocking
a
on my
watch
door.
list now, right?
Probably.
Your
But
local authorities are checking it out.
well, you know, I had to research you know, what happens when a body dies, because
Mhm.
these bodies are found in various stages, and what's the first thing to happen? What's the last thing to happen? All that kind of stuff. And mine, I'm giving something away too. Mine has kind of a spiritual connection. My killers, I'll give that away, are part of a spiritual mindset, and they think they're doing really wonderful things for
Oh,
these people
interesting.
that they kill.
So
So
that connects to your cover then, right? Of the
yeah,
angel?
the angel, yeah,
Ah,
yeah, exactly. And they're like, you know, you've heard about nurses in the hospital who do mercy killings, and they're called
sure.
avenging angels or whatever they're called, mercy angels. I kind of had that in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
but the twists and turns that came out of this novel blew me away, because I originally had this concept, and then all these characters started stepping on stage and saying, "But I want to do it," or, you know, I want to deal with this, you know. And then we have this a couple insane people, you know. It's just it kept happening. It kept growing and growing. So, yeah, I had a great time getting into these people's heads. Mine's not first person, it's omniscient. So I was in everybody's head in different chapters and different scenes. So you got to see
Oh,
a
that's
lot
fun
of
too.
a lot of
Then the
weird
reader
stuff.
gets to piece it all together from a
Yes.
different perspective. That's nice.
And everybody who read the book was totally caught off guard by what was
Wow.
going on, and they had no clue. So that made me feel really good. I hid it well. I threw out red herrings and the whole 9 yards. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask a few questions to both of you as far as your experiences with having several books out now, and just find out, just check in with you. How are you doing nowadays with the writing, and have you changed how your process with writing as you've gone through the different books? So,
Jane?
Yeah, I after writing my first book, which was Across the Crowded Room, which was a romance, and the second book, which was Jobina's Blues, which was historical, I've written 3 mysteries, and I'm working on the third. I don't know if this is going to be forever, that this is the genre that I'll write in. You know, I've got other ideas that are kind of, you know, lying there waiting to be addressed and everything. But I technically, it's amazing how much a better writer I am technically than the first book. You know, I was an English major in college, undergrad, and I've written a whole lot of business. You know, I've written a lot of business memos and stuff over the years in my business, but the technical things that I know grammar, and I know I can get spell check and that sort of thing, but you know, the technical things about writing that I've learned through Desert Palm Press and through the Golden Crown meetings and the seminars that I've gone through there, and reading, you know, books from other novelists and so on. I'm just a much better writer. And there's a technique, a tool called Writer's Diet, DIET, and it's free. You can download it for free, and it's a woman in New Zealand, I think, that invented it. And you can just run your drafts, run your rough drafts through that, and it helps you with the technical craft side of writing. I found that immeasurably helpful. So I think my readers, I hope my readers will find that the books flow better, they're more enjoyable, they make more sense, they you know, don't use unnecessary words, which I tend to do.
That's always a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I would think so, because you know the way we speak is different than the way we write, and you find out even more prevalent when you're writing a manuscript and you're having your editor rip it to shreds because they're saying, "No, you said that 20 pages ago. You don't need to say it here."
Yeah.
And what about you, Natty? So you've written so many books at this point. How's your process at this point?
I think we grow a lot with every book, because if you are receptive to what the characters are telling you and you let them have their voice, I think it comes. And at first I was trying to use my voice, you know, and say what I wanted to say. But then I realized that the characters had stuff they wanted to say. Yes, that makes me sound like a crazy person, but I don't care.
No, I agree.
But you know, they just you develop this character, and then you just kind of let them have free reign, and off they go. When I started in this business years and years ago, I had to print out the manuscript, find an agent who would submit it to a publisher for me. And then the publisher would put it in their slush pile most of the time. And I wouldn't hear anything for 6 to 8 weeks. And so I couldn't submit anywhere else. I mean, it was a static type thing. I had to just wait and then go work on my next novel. Nowadays, that is entirely different. You know, with the advent of, you know, social media for one thing, but also the way that publishers are accepting manuscripts now. It's so much faster. You get so much more feedback. They send it out to beta readers quite often. You get information from them before the publisher agrees to give you a contract, but it's all in a row helpful. and it really helps you grow as a writer. That old way was just you only got your manuscript read if you had already had a name, and getting
Right.
the name was the catch-22. How did you get a name? You know, but
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, even somebody who doesn't have a name, if they have quality writing, they can send it in, and the beta readers or the readers for the publisher will let the publisher know, hey, this is a good manuscript. We should look into this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then the publisher makes the decision to offer the contract. And that to me is a huge step forward
Mm-hmm.
from what it was. I noticed one thing. I don't know if I'm jumping questions, but I noticed that lesbian fiction as a genre seems to be backing away a little bit, and I'm really sad to see that. I mean, you remember the days of Naiad and Bella,
Sure.
and people had a hard time getting these books, and they came in plain brown wrappers, and the
Mm-hmm.
stories. But nowadays, it's like the millennials coming up, and even the Gen X, they want stories of all genres. They want
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi, they want horror, they want
Right.
mystery, they want thrillers, they want romance, they want it all. But they don't want it to be any kind of formula. They want to have lesbian characters in there. And then
Mm-hmm.
their best friends are gay males. And then their other best friends are non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
They want all of this put into a novel. And that's what I see coming down the pike for the future of fiction in general. And even amongst the lesbian publishers, you see more and more of it all the time. I mean, GCLS just switched over to inclusion as their theme. They want
Yeah.
to include all kinds of people and all kinds of writing.
Yeah, that fluidity certainly is coming into the mainstream at this point. We see more and more. And of course, there are those that hate the changes and those that are applauding it, as always, right?
As always.
that's, that's what we're dealing with. But that's a
And
good point that we have really broadened our subject matter and our characteristics for our protagonists in these books nowadays. It's very different than even 10 years ago.
and we have to roll with it as authors. We
Yes.
have to say, okay, let's back off from the formula lesbian romance.
Mm-hmm.
And Karen Callmaker, we had her for our book club this past month, and we
All
talked
right.
about this issue because she is a formula romance writer, and she has had an incredible career, 20-30 books or something in
Right.
that
Yes.
genre. So she's kind of locked in. But I noticed her latest one, Simply the Best, veered a little
Mm-hmm.
from that. And
So
so
Jane, that works for you because you don't have to be locked into mystery or even romance. If you want to branch out to something else, then you
Right.
certainly have that opportunity. You can throw in different elements and blend them in and
Right.
write what you want to write because it sounds like our audience is open to that at this point.
mhm.
Right. Right.
Does Evil's Echo have a lesbian romance in it?
Yes,
Okay.
it has the romance between Butch and Christine Carr, the detective.
Oh, great. I
Yeah.
sensed that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Well, it
That's
was the first meeting, so
But there were sparks.
yes, but there were sparks. That's right, right.
Yeah.
So the publishing process, you talked a bit about it a little bit, Natty, how it's changed to some extent, how before you had to send out the manuscript and wait 6 to 8 weeks to hear anything. It was just radio silence. And now the publishing process has changed a bit. Now that you both have gone through the process so many times, how do you feel about the publishing process for lesfic in particular?
Go ahead,
Well,
Jane.
I'll talk about Desert Palm Press. All of my
Okay.
books have been with Desert Palm Press. And when I started out, I submitted only to lesbian fiction publishers. My first book, Across a Crowded Room, and it didn't fit with a lot of people. Um, and Lee Fitzsimmons gave me a chance. An
She's
unpublished
awesome.
writer that I'd never written a book before, and she gave me a chance, and I really appreciate that very much. And the experience of Desert Palm, and I had other people and other publishers who were very affirming, who said, this is just not for us right now, but it's a good story, and I'm sure you'll find a place. And so everybody was very affirming, and I think that has to do with the fact that we're women and lesbians, probably.
Mm.
But yeah. But and so Lee is very hands-on and very responsive. And I have a great. She let me pick my editor.
Hmm.
After a couple of books, I found Heather Flournoy to
Oh
give a
yeah.
shout out. Heather's wonderful, and she lets me she let me participate in my covers. Anne McMahon,
Hmm.
and so it's a
Great team.
partnership, and
Yes.
it's just been great with Lee. And you can buy my books at Desert Palm Press, and that's the cheapest way to buy them. You can also get
Hmm.
them on Amazon and Bella, but I think you get a 10% discount on Desert Palm Press, DPP.com.
Right. Good job. Yeah, definitely. Lee let me choose my editors and cover artists too. And actually, I used Natty for one of my editing
Yes, that
books.
was great. I loved it.
That was a great
Yeah,
process. So,
yeah.
Natty, tell me your thoughts on the publishing process.
Oh, I think that any young, especially lesbian writer who wants to get into the business should definitely seek out the smaller publishers. I mean, even Bold Strokes is probably the biggest. You hate to,
Right.
but and then you got Bella, and then
Mhm.
you have Desert Palm Press and others like Flashpoint and some others. Anyway,
Right. Sure.
they will give you the feedback that you need, especially as a new author. Now,
Mhm.
my first book was with Bella in 2009, I think, 2 weeks in August. And at that point, I had already published with another publisher, but I wanted to do lesbian fiction. So that's why I approached Bella. And I got a call from Karen Callmaker laughing about my book and telling me the story as if I hadn't written it. And I had to say, well, yeah, I know that happens. Yes. Because she was talking about this scene with the horse eating the bicycle tires, she was laughing uproariously. So that was my first contact with Bella, and they were good. Now it has changed hands. Karen's no longer there, and some changes, shifting has gone on. So I
Right.
think they're more into distribution than they are into publishing.
Hmm.
But Desert Palm Press, that's all they do.
Right.
They and for Lee has been wonderful to me. I mean, she'll Skype me any old time and say, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you writing? What's
Right.
happening?" And you don't get that from the big name publishers like Penguin or Simon
Right.
Schuster. They just don't do that. You might have an agent who will do it,
Mhm.
which but I don't want to pay an agent, so bye bye.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think you're touching upon something though. These smaller presses, they will keep in touch with you and they want to know what's
Yes,
going on and they will hold your hands. And for newer writers, that's really a wonderful aspect of these small presses that they'll take a chance on you and work with you to get it up to a publishable level
exactly.
for them.
And you're their livelihood, and you know it. You know that they want to publish you because they want to get your work out, and it's good for them and it's good for you.
Hmm.
But in some of the bigger publishing companies, you just get lost in the cracks of the desk. It just doesn't happen that way. So
Sure.
I highly recommend small publishers, especially lesbian publishers.
So let me ask you both then, now that you've been writing for a while, what advice can you give new authors who are navigating this publishing process? Um, how can you help them to have, expectations that aren't too, out on the nether, then kind of get them ready mentally for this process?
Go for it, Jane.
Well, I think everybody's experience is probably different,
Hmm.
based on their personality and their writing style. And some people are better at self-publishing. A
Hmm.
lot, very successful books in our genre,
Hmm.
are self-published. And I think there are tools around. I don't understand them,
Hmm.
but I think they're there to be understood with Amazon and so on. Self-publishing becomes, an option.
Okay.
I think in terms of, a really good circle of friends who will read your work and give you
Yes.
input is so important. When I started
Yes.
out, we had a little group of writers and I was the only lesbian fiction writer in
Mhm.
all. But we, read to each other and made suggestions to each other and helped each other. And having a really good beta reader is incredibly useful, especially somebody who'll tell you the truth and
Yes.
and who you are willing to hear the truth from. That's
Mhm.
different for everybody else, I guess. And you always read this. Just write,
Mhm.
Mhm.
write,
That's
write,
right.
write, write, write.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect at first. Um, I can't. I reread everything I write almost every time I write.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
takes a long time for me to,
I do that too.
because I go
Me
back
too.
and edit it as I go along. Some people don't do that.
Right.
I have a tough time writing more than 50,000 words in a
Mhm.
story. A lot of people have the other issue, which is writing too many words. And so a novel's 40,000 words or more. So sometimes I struggle with 40,000 words. Uh,
Mhm.
I wrote a short story for an anthology back in Halloween, at Halloween and Halloween anthology, and that was a lot of fun. It was only 10,000 words. It was
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
I was,
And I think you have a good point about making sure you have beta readers, friends and acquaintances who are willing to read your book and give you feedback. Because, it's great to have friends and family read your manuscript and tell you how awesome you are, but that's not going to help you
Mhm.
with a publishable manuscript.
No.
You need someone to tell you if there are holes in it or if there's discrepancies or if someone you
right,
just not fleshed out enough or if the way they're acting or speaking doesn't mesh well with their personality.
right, right.
All of that's important. So
And
Natty,
Yeah.
tell me.
that's different than an editor.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Very
It's,
different than an editor.
way before the editor gets a look at it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they have the terms for all that too. But but we don't even care about that. What we care about is we need someone to give us feedback before we submit to a publisher, so that we have
Absolutely.
a firm grasp of it. So
Yeah.
Natty, tell me what advice you could give new
Well,
authors.
I edit for four four or five publishers now,
Hmm.
and I usually end up training new authors.
Hmm.
I spend a good bit of time doing that, and the first thing I always tell them is BIC, and they're like, "What? What's BIC? What's BIC?" But in chair. You can't go around telling everybody, "Oh, I'm working on this book. It's going to be a horror book, and I'm going to do," and never put the words on the page.
Right.
Good, bad, or indifferent, the
Yeah,
words have to be on the page.
right.
That's
And
right.
then you can start about making it into the form that you need it to be. I'm in particular trained as a commercial editor, which means I get the final look at the manuscripts before they're actually printed and published.
Uh,
And the thing that people don't understand is you have to look at a lot. You have to know your craft, first of
Hmm.
all. I mean, there are so many people who treat the word over as like as jazzy,
I know this
you
one.
know my thing, the word over because of advertising is used like you know jelly beans. People just put them on the page like jelly beans, and it means a specific thing. So authors have to know their words. Read a dictionary if you don't know. Just sit down and start looking up words. And the other thing I tell new authors, and this is so important in my opinion, go to the library, go to the bookstore, grab 3 or 4 bestsellers off the shelf,
Hmm.
take them to a table, sit down, and start glancing, reading through them
Hmm.
and look at how they use language. Look at how they present ideas. Look
Hmm.
at how they do dialogue, and how
Right.
dialogue can move a story forward. Because dialogue is like the best story mover alonger that there is. Now that was really bad English, but you get my drift. I mean, it's like look at what the bestsellers are doing and then try to emulate it. Don't copy word for word. That's not
Right.
the thing. But emulate their what they're doing that's working
Hmm.
and put it into your own writing.
Yeah.
And
See why they're bestsellers.
yes, and for new authors, I think that's really valuable information to get. And that's a part of knowing your craft. You have to know the bestsellers out there. Plus, you have to know what words mean, and you have to know how to move your characters through this world that you have created,
Yeah.
and create the world. Don't just tell me that Susie has blonde hair. Does Susie do like this all the time? Does
Yeah.
she, do Valley Girl stuff? I need to know that. I don't
Yeah.
need to just have a blonde haired girl moving through this blank, what do you call it? Portrait or whatever, without
Right.
any kind of characterization. So anyway,
Yeah.
I could go on all day about that, but that's my
Yeah.
spiel.
No, definitely, because you need to blow life into these characters and not just tell them don't just describe what they look like.
Oh,
Tell
that's
us
the other thing.
their quirks.
The other thing, focus on characterization, not
Mhm.
plot. A lot of
Right.
people say, oh, I've got to plot this story. It's got a great plot. Well, if your characters are lifeless, so's the plot.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
We want the readers to care about the characters.
Absolutely.
We have to get to know them. Well, there's a great part to end in, and I'm so glad we got to chat today and to hear from your works. So I'm hoping that those that watch today will check out your books and get to know you even better, or contact you. We did put we put your website, so they're pretty easy actually, right? It's just natburns.com and Jane Alden. Is it janealden.com?
Yes.
So
Jane Alden
pretty
Books,
easy, right?
JaneAldenBooks.com.
Oh, thank you. JaneAldenBooks.com. My
Mhm.
bad. So, so please check them out. And thank you for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you
Good
for
job.
inviting us.
Good job.
Thank you,
It was
Jane.
great.
Thank you,
Yes,
Meredith.
absolutely, Jazzy. Good job.
Get well, Jane. And I'll see you later.
Yeah. Poor
All right.
baby.
So I hope to see you both in person, maybe at one of the conferences this year.
Are you coming to Albuquerque?
I'm going to
Yeah.
Albuquerque.
Yes. Yes.
Ah, that's where I live. That'll be great.
All right. I'll see you both then. Couple months.
Yes.
All
Jane,
right.
you coming?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
thrilled. I'm thrilled. Okay.
Great. GCLS. We'll see you in
See you
July. Bye.